Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. It's time for divine spirit inside. When you get this feeling, time for spiritual healing. Oh, we need spiritual healing. Children of the sun, we need spiritual healing. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up.
And so, what do you do when you find out that absolutely nobody is telling you the truth? What the I and I would suggest to you, to that self that questions what is truth and what is deception, is to take these few minutes to examine the truth about the nature of energy that fuels your thoughts, your reasonings, and your actions. Take time to consider the truth about the biased perception that fuels explosive and burning reactions. What is the nature of energy that filters your perceptions through an emotional screen of vengeful bitterness, anger, and scornful hate? Yes, take time to consider the truth about the state of consciousness that you live within. And most importantly, consider that any one-sided view within a divisive nature of consciousness continues to position you as the bringer of half-truth, partial truth, unwhole truth, in other words, as the bringer of deception. One will remain in the deceptions of limited perceptions, and the holistic living truth about divine socioeconomic family community order will look like what you have known and have been shown within your own lifestyle, fueled by a nature of consciousness that can only breed ego-driven, self-deifying individualism. Individualism. In case you do not know what the I and I am talking about, I am talking about that individualistic, self-deifying nature that causes heterophobia. We mean bitter, hateful scorn within the female toward the male, and bitter, hateful scorn in the male toward the female, where either one blames the other as the cause of his or her woes in life. And none of that divisive nature of consciousness can be forced or be coerced or otherwise manipulated into being accepted as a norm within divine social, economic, family, community order. What must be comprehended is that when we're talking about divine social, economic, family, community order, we are talking about an entirely different nature of consciousness that calls for an entirely different nature of thought, reasoning, and action. Yes, an entirely different nature of truth, holistic living truth. The individualistic consciousness of self-deification is both permissive and promiscuous, allowing whatever the individual claims the right to do and be and think and say and perceive whatever pleases the individualistic nature of self. However, we must be clear here that there are holistic living requirements that are necessary in sustaining mental, physical, and spiritual health and well-being within divine social, economic, family, community order. Just as one has duties, obligations, and responsibilities in sustaining one's personal health and well-being, there are holistic living requirements that one must fulfill within divine social, economic, family, community order as the larger social body of one's existence. Therefore, when an individual attempts to demand or bully, fake, fraud, or pretend his or her way into holistic living consciousness, he or she becomes so frustrated that the true divisive nature that dominates and controls his or her thoughts, reasonings, and actions is eventually exposed for all to see. Having exposed the nature of bitter, hateful scorn and the burning wrath that seeks vengeful destruction, the individual is indeed speaking the truth about the nature of consciousness that he or she lives within. And when the I and I do not give moral supports to the social values and sexual norms that prevail within the corrupt consciousness that breeds the culture of individualism, the I and I am quickly labeled as homophobic, or as an occultist, or an extremist, or any other perception that misrepresents the nature of whole life energy and attempts to degrade holistic living truth into the same depleting nature of consciousness that the accuser resides within. So let us go beyond the relative and partial truth of self-perception that never allow one to see oneself as a mere reflection of the same deceptive and fraudulent nature of consciousness that one projects on others in righteous attack. Instead, consider the fact that there is in fact supreme truth, which allows one to reason with the holistic living factors of what is required to depart, exit, get out of an abusive, brutalizing, hostile, aggressive nature of consciousness that continues to manifest conflict, confusion, and chaos as the daily reality of the ego-driven self that has amassed within so many. That insecure and unstable individualistic self is always on the prowl for a scapegoat, a sacrificial lamb, and a sacred cow to consume of in an effort to boost its own claims of righteousness. Beware that there is a nature of energy that opposes your existence as a divine child of the sun and the sacred garden culture from which we come. As such, this opposition nature is at work to deplete your life energy. Beware that there is a nature that opposes the divine laws of universal order. That is to say, opposes the divine consumption of the fruits of the trees of life, opposes the divine union of masculine and feminine energy as he and she, and opposes the forward multiplication of divinity into every offspring and vibration of the generation next, and therefore opposes divine social, economic, family, community order. That's right. In fact, there are two entirely different natures of energy, and each is true to its own nature. So, in truth and reality, the question is, which nature are you truly in alignment with in your search for truth? Divine order or toxic reality? Supreme truth or self-deifying fallacy? In closing this presentation, we share the truth about a state and condition of consciousness that perpetuates hostile, bitter, inhumane, and scornful hate among those adversely affected, be they victim and or victimizers.
Let us make a slave. What do we need? First of all, we need a black Negro man, a pregnant Negro woman, and her baby Negro boy. Second, we will use the same basic principles that we use in breaking a horse, combined with some more sustaining factors. What we do with horses is that we break them from one form of life to another. That is, we reduce them from their natural state in nature. Whereas nature provides them with the natural capacity to take care of their offspring, we break that natural string of independence from them and thereby create a dependency status so that we may be able to get from them useful production for our business and pleasure. A brief discourse in offspring development will shed light on the key to sound economic principles. Pay little attention to the generation of original breaking, but concentrate on future generation. Therefore, if you break the female mother, she will break the offspring in its early years of development. And when the offspring is old enough to work, she will deliver it up to you, for her normal female protective tendencies will have been lost in the original breaking process. We reversed nature by burning and pulling a civilized Negro apart and bullwhipping the other to the point of death, all in her presence. By her being left alone, unprotected, with the male image destroyed, the ordeal caused her to move from her psychologically dependent state to a frozen, independent state. In this frozen psychological state of independence, she will raise her male and female offspring in reversed roles. For fear of the young male's life, she will psychologically train him to be mentally weak and dependent, but physically strong. Because she has become psychologically independent, she will train her female offsprings to be psychologically independent. What have you got? You've got the Negro woman out front and the Negro man behind and scared. This is a perfect situation of sound sleep in economics. Before the breaking process, we had to be alertly on guard at all times. Now we can sleep soundly, for out of frozen fear, his woman stands guard for us. He cannot get past her early slave molding process. Continually through the breaking of uncivilized Negroes, by throwing the Negro female into a frozen psychological state of independence, by killing the protective male image, and by creating a submissive, dependent mind of the Negro male slave, we have created an orbiting cycle that turns on its own axis forever, unless a phenomena occurs and reshifts the position of the male and female slaves. Taken from the prophetic 12,594-year Banu cycle, encoding the consciousness of higher peace through the divine union of masculine and feminine energy, Book 1 by High Priest Kwatamani, page 338.
Some may question the validity of the document said to contain such statements. However, the truth and the consequence of what is expressed in thoughts, in reasoning, and in action has shown the nature of this consciousness to be a true social phenomena that has adversely affected and continue to adversely affect the relationships within and among mass populations. And up to now, May 2018, no mass social phenomena of detoxing and purging to heal has occurred, although divine social economic family community order is a work in progress.
And always remember that your nature of thought and reasoning in action speaks louder than words. So go ahead, speak your truth, and we will continue to speak our holistic living truth through divine social economic family community order, divine consumption, fruit of the tree, divine union, masculine and feminine energy, he and she, forward multiplication of divinity into every offspring and vibration of the generation next. And if it is not about this, we are not about that, and no level and degree of hostile aggression, forceful, vengeful rage will cause us to submit or align with that nature that oppose our sacred ancestral existence as divine children of the sun, and therefore oppose our sacred ancestral culture, our sacred garden culture from which we come. And one must never forget, it is not about the color of one's skin, but rather about the state of consciousness that one lives within. So what do you do when you find out the truth about the state of consciousness that you live within?
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up.
Sexual deviation has hit the ceiling. Children of the sun, we need spiritual healing. Oh yes, we do.
After the wheeling and the dealing in the sexual feeling,
That sexual feeling. Now we
spiritual
need
healing.
spiritual healing.
Children of the sun.